Have you ever felt a quiet ache you can't name? Not sadness, not anger. Just a heaviness, like a song you once knew but forgot how to sing. You move through your day, working, laughing, connecting with thousands at the tap of a screen. And yet, somewhere beneath it all, a hollow space echoes. Ever wonder if the life you're building isn't broken, but misaligned? As if your soul and the world are walking side by side, but no longer holding hands. Maybe it's not you who is lost. Maybe it's the world that forgot the way home. Today, we are not looking for quick fixes. We are pausing, listening, tracing the hidden fracture lines beneath our busy lives. Because healing doesn't begin when we push harder. It begins when we dare to ask, what if everything we called normal, what needs to heal? Part 1. The silent collapse. A society forgetting itself. Behind the polished surfaces of modern life, faster connections, greater conveniences, endless choices, something invisible has begun to crack. On the outside, we seem more connected than ever. Yet inside, many feel lonelier than they dare admit. The real crisis isn't that people are unhappy. It's that unhappiness has been normalized. Chronic anxiety, emotional numbness, spiritual fatigue. We wear them like invisible uniforms, thinking they are the cost of being an adult in the modern world. And the most dangerous part, we stopped questioning it. We stopped asking why a generation raised with every convenience feels so exhausted. We stopped wondering why the very tools designed to connect us have left us scrolling endlessly, hollow and detached. Buddhist psychology speaks of suffering born from life itself, but from misunderstanding life. And today, misunderstanding runs deep, not just individually, but collectively. Psychologists call it mass formation. When isolated, anxious individuals unconsciously merge into a herd, not out of unity, but out of fear. Not truly connected, but clinging to noise to drown out the silence within. When meaning disappears, consumption takes its place. When real belonging vanishes, tribalism fills the void. And slowly, subtly, society becomes a house built on sand, appearances over essence, stimulation over stillness, conformity over truth. Pause here for a moment. Have you ever sensed that frantic energy beneath everyday life? The rush to be visible, to be validated, to not fall behind, even if no one knows where behind truly is. This isn't life. This is survival mode, mass-produced and mass-consumed. The Buddha once said, "The world is afflicted by its own misunderstanding, and perhaps now, more than ever, we are called not just to heal ourselves, but to awaken from the collective trance. Because true healing won't come by adjusting to a sick society. It will come by remembering that the ache you feel, that faint whisper that something is wrong, is not weakness. It is your soul refusing to be numbed. And maybe, just maybe, that whisper is the first step home." Part 2. Mass formation and the loss of meaning. In a society that glorifies productivity and hyperconnectivity, something precious has quietly eroded, our sense of meaning. The tragedy is not that people have lost faith in the system. It's that they've lost touch with themselves. And when the self becomes hollow, it doesn't vanish, it clings to movements, to identities, to noise. Mass formation, a psychological phenomenon once studied in totalitarian regimes, is no longer confined to history books. It's here, and it doesn't march in boots. It scrolls, it tweets, it mimics, reposts, repeats. People are no longer thinking, they are reacting. Modern psychology has long warned that when critical thought is numbed by constant stimulation, emotional regulation collapses, leaving reaction to rule the mind. To algorithms, to slogans, to curated realities that reward outrage more than understanding. Buddhism speaks of avijja, ignorance, not as stupidity, but as a blindness to what truly is. This blindness isn't just personal anymore. It has become collective. When individuals are emotionally disconnected from their core, They become vulnerable to symbolic substitutes, flags, hashtags, ideologies that offer belonging without introspection, and so, people adopt borrowed beliefs. They speak with borrowed voices, they live borrowed lives. But underneath the chants, the labels, the digital noise, there is still a quiet soul, aching to feel something real. The Buddha did not teach us to join a tribe. He taught us to wake up, to pierce through illusion, to see things as they are, not as we are told they should be. And here's the truth we often ignore. The more we outsource meaning to the crowd, the more lost we feel in solitude. And when silence becomes unbearable, distraction becomes survival. Have you noticed it? How difficult it is to sit in stillness without reaching for your phone. How quickly discomfort rises when you're alone with your thoughts. This is not a personal flaw. It's a symptom of spiritual starvation. Because in a world that constantly yells what to think, the hardest thing to do is to remember how to feel. So we chase stimulation, call it joy. We repeat opinions, call it knowledge. We seek external validation, call it connection. But beneath all of it, a question whispers. What if meaning isn't found in adding more, but in stripping away what never belonged? In Buddhist psychology, this is called vipassana, the clear seeing that arises not from information, but from silence. Not from consumption, but from presence. And perhaps that's the radical act in today's world, not to shout louder, but to see deeper, to reclaim your own mind, to return to your own breath, to sit quietly with the truth that you don't need to belong to the noise, to belong to yourself. Part 3: The New Illusions, Dopamine, Screens, and the Death of Stillness. If once the illusions were ideological, now they are biochemical. Today, our chains are made not of iron, but of dopamine. Every notification, every scroll, every digital click, it's not just information. It's a chemical hit, carefully engineered to hijack your nervous system. The modern mind is not enslaved by tyrants. It's enslaved by pleasure. Contemporary psychology describes this as dopamine-driven behavior loops, addictive, unconscious patterns that mimic choice but bypass awareness. Screens have become our new temples, algorithms, our unseen priests, and what they preach is simple. Don't stop, don't slow down, don't feel too much. Because if you slow down, even for a moment, you might remember. You might feel the weight of the ache you've been avoiding. You might sense the emptiness no app can fill. The Buddha warned of attachment to pleasant sensations as a subtle, potent form of suffering. Not because pleasure is evil, but because when we chase it mindlessly, we trade awakening for anesthesia. And what anesthetizes us soon controls us. Look around. We no longer choose our focus. It is captured, curated, sold. Attention, once a sacred flame, is now a commodity. Auctioned to the highest bidder, fragments by fragment, and the cost, the death of stillness, the death of true seeing. Because without stillness, there can be no clarity. Without clarity, there can be no awakening. Have you noticed it? How rare it is now to find someone truly present, not glancing at a screen, not rehearsing a response, but simply being. It's not because humans are less capable. It's because we are under siege, a siege not of swords, but of stimuli. A siege that trains us to mistake reaction for thought, distraction for life. In Buddhist psychology, true freedom comes not from indulging every impulse, but from seeing the impulse arise and choosing not to be its slave. This is the first step back to yourself. To notice the hunger for another click, to feel the pull toward another scroll. And then, without judgment, to pause, to breathe, to return to the place inside you that no algorithm can touch. The world will not reward you for reclaiming your stillness, but your soul will. Because underneath the noise, the endless stimulation, the frantic reaching, there is a silence that never left you. A silence vast enough to hold your pain, and tender enough to heal it. Perhaps it's not the next dopamine hit you need, Perhaps it's the courage to sit in the sacred discomfort, to let it burn away the illusions, until only what's real remains. Part 4. Awakening. Walking through a world asleep. Awakening is not a moment of fireworks. It is not a loud declaration, not a sudden triumph over darkness. It is quieter than that, more fragile, more real. Awakening begins the first time you notice everyone is running, but few know why. It begins when you pause in a world that tells you to hurry, when you dare to feel, in a culture that tells you to numb, when you choose to see, even when it's easier to look away. And at first, it is lonely, because the world you awaken into is not always kind to the awake. You will see the shallowness behind the noise, the sadness behind the laughter, the frantic hunger behind the glitter. You will see how much of what we call life is a desperate forgetting. A forgetting of depth, of meaning, of soul. The Buddha said, "Few are those who reach the other shore. Most people run up and down the bank, only this side." To awaken is not to condemn those who are still running. It is simply to step quietly into a different way of being, to walk slower, to listen deeper, to breathe into the ache without rushing to fix it. And slowly, almost imperceptibly, your presence becomes its own kind of rebellion. You are no longer so easily pulled by trends, opinions, outrage. You no longer seek permission to exist. Instead, you move like a river, not needing approval, not fearing rejection. You learn to sit with discomfort without fleeing. You learn to meet joy without clinging. And in that spaciousness, you rediscover an ancient song. A song that was always humming beneath the machinery of the world. The song of life simply being itself. Awakening is not leaving the world. It is walking through it with your eyes wide open, your heart quietly lit from within. It is smiling at a stranger not because it is expected, but because you have remembered that they, too, are lost and searching, just like you. It is grieving the sorrows of the world without being crushed by them. It is celebrating the beauty of the world without needing to possess it. Awakening is remembering that you were never missing, only sleeping, and now, gently, bravely, humbly, you are beginning to wake, not to a perfect world, but to a life that was always sacred, even in its brokenness. The real miracle is not changing the world overnight. It is keeping your soul awake, while walking through a world that has forgotten how to dream. And if you can do that, even for one breath, one step, one silent act of seeing, then perhaps you are already free, coming home to what was always there. Maybe awakening is not about becoming someone new. Maybe it's about peeling away everything that was never truly yours. The fears you inherited, the stories you clung to, the noise you mistook for music. Maybe the journey is not forward, but inward. Not a conquest, but a quiet remembering. The Buddha never promised an escape from life. He pointed to a way of living that touches life more deeply, where joy and sorrow are no longer enemies, but threads in the same great tapestry, he said. As the great ocean has but one taste, the taste of salt, so too does this teaching have but one taste, the taste of liberation. Freedom was never on a mountaintop. It was never in the next success, the next possession, the next approval. It has always been right here, in the breath you are breathing, in the space between thoughts, in the raw, tender immediacy of your own being. You do not need to earn it. You do not need to become worthy of it. Both ancient Buddhist psychology and modern contemplative science agree. Stillness is not an escape. It's a return to presence, where healing begins. You only need to stop running long enough to feel it, right now, as you listen. The earth is turning. The rivers are flowing. Your heart is beating its ancient rhythm. Nothing is missing. You are already home. Let the world race. Let the voices shout. You will move slower. You will breathe deeper. You will see clearer. And maybe that, quietly, is how the world begins to heal. Not by force, not by noise, but by one soul, awake and unafraid. Walking through a sleeping world, as a silent invitation for others to remember too. Breathe in, breathe out, remember. You have always been free. Thank you for being here.